subcommittee is 3 people. Darcy Doyle, who's the chairperson, John Lund, who's chair of the school committee, and Mayor Martin, who isn't here yet. And let's see, the press is here, some administrators from the school, some parents, some students, and probably interested other people.
Great. So I'm going to have a hard stop at about 6:30. So my suggestion is let's focus on what information I can give you, what questions I can answer that are the biggest concern. And as we discussed, I'll be out there next Thursday for the meeting, and anything we haven't covered today, either you can follow up with an email and I can answer later, or we'll talk down next Thursday.
I think it's a great idea. Let me pass this over to Doris Doyle so she can start the meeting. Mr. Wolfson said from the Department of Ed that he can only be with this meeting until 6:30, so he's suggesting that when we open the meeting, the committee be able to talk to him and whatever else with public comment happen later.
Okay, this is Doris Doyle. The meeting of the Innovative Subcommittee is called to order. It's March 14th. It's a continuation of the subcommittee meeting we had last evening. Present myself and John Lund. And the mayor just arrived.
Mayor is arriving.
Okay.
Hi Mayor, the meeting just started and Jeff Wolfson from the Department of Education is on the phone and Peter Smith, the school attorney, is on the phone.
Susan, would you like to sum up what we
Yes,
did yesterday?
I have been asked to sum up yesterday's subcommittee meeting where all 3 subcommittee meeting members were present with the school attorney, members of the public. There was considerable public comment. The parents were saying that they are all following what's going on. Each member of the subcommittee spoke. We discussed that we had had a visit from legislators on Friday. And I think after a lot of discussion, all 3 members of the subcommittee indicated an interest in getting more information and seeing if it was possible to carve out a solution. Doris Doyle, I wrote down, and she said in particular that she wanted parents to know that we're working extremely hard to keep going so that we can do something for children. And I mentioned that there were other things that we were being asked to do this spring with the Department of Education. And if we were going to have to work on this, we would be buried unless we could get a reprieve from something. And one of the parents, several of the parents spoke. There was a lot of questions about special education, how that would be handled for students that were on IEPs. There were questions about the law. There were questions about forming the board. And I think we said that there would be a need for some transition time. Mr. Luntz said we were being asked to handle a very difficult logistical enterprise. This meeting adjourned at 8:25 to go into executive session to speak with the attorney who was giving a lot of input during the meeting about special ed law. There's a little bit of confusion, I'd say, on the exact exact details about the law. Only in terms of type of school, choice, money, board. And I don't know, do you want the committee members to give you specific questions, or do you just want to?
I think I'm able to provide whatever information I have, so I think the topic is the question. Probably,
You may have to speak a little louder, Jeff. We have a average speaker system, and there's a lot of people, so.
I'm not good at my phone will amplify it anymore, but I'm just suggesting that we go right ahead and give me whatever question I can answer now.
Okay, John Lund has a question for you, Jeff.
Hi Jeff, it's John Lund. Thanks for taking the time. Hi, thanks for taking the time to talk to us. The first question I want to ask is, it did seem like there might be some ability to give us a little more time if we were to put in an RFP, and Susan may have already talked with you about this. And I just wanted to confirm with you that, you know, not endless, but it would be incredibly helpful for us to have a little more time to address this.
And the answer to that is yes, we can absolutely give you another month. We're looking at moving the deadline down to April 22nd. Anything beyond that, the problem is we need to be ready to go to our state board for their final vote by their June meeting. They don't meet over the summer.
Right.
So with that, everything off from the June meeting and what needs to happen between the application received and going to the board. But absolutely, we can push this to April 22nd with no problem. The reason we said it earlier is in general, we don't like to leave town hanging.
Sure, sure.
But I understand the circumstances here, and that's not a problem.
Well, that's a big help. That really helps us take the time we need to. We, on our end, are trying to do what you're trying to do, which is just try to find and make this work for the families. We feel pretty strongly that the way this should work is that we need to set up a board of trustees for this new school that is not us.
We're not being exclusively here.
Right.
There's nothing that was submitted, some representation.
Right.
From the school committee, and then again, of course, as the sponsoring district, you get to select all of the initial trustees.
Yes.
So there's still some connection there.
Right.
And I think everybody understands the reason why school committee members can't make up a majority of the board, because we anticipate that you'll be, would like to see cooperative agreements between district and school to provide shared services or
Right.
whatever. And it's a big accomplishment as well. Want to ensure that that's not going on.
Well, we actually agree with everything you just said. That,
Since no one can hear you, we can make it up.
yeah. Thank you for the multi-million-dollar grant, Jeff. No, we really do agree with it, because we think that while there certainly needs to be duty on the part of the administration and work to work with the new body, we don't think over the long term it's really the job of a local school board to run a state school. And
But we don't really use it as a state school, although by nature, of course, it'll be state control of the state. But yeah, the responsibility will still be, provided will be local, but the new law does give us some oversight over it that we haven't had before.
Right.
And just a quick word about the timing, because I understand that everybody's feeling under the gun, and, believe me, we were feeling the same way.
Sure.
This law was being talked about for a long time, and it was unfortunate that we found through that now, that the legislature waited until literally the last day of their session to pass it.
Right.
If it come out in the summer or fall, I think we would have all had more time to
Yeah.
deal with it. But recognizing that, what we're really just looking to do is help you get the bare minimum we need to have in place to be able to go and give you a certificate. We're not expecting every last, bit to be fixed. We've got a lot of time between now and September to get the remaining pieces in place. This is an experimental program. It's, you're the first one again as a month. So we're not looking for perfection on day one.
well, that's good, because we're unlikely to be able to provide that. So, the one thing I did want to, and then I'll let other people jump in, is to just let you know that we're going to need your help if we're going to get this done in a timely fashion. There is
Yeah, and we're more than happy to help, as I mentioned to Stu, much of what this structure is done is modeled on the charter school law, although there's some things that
right.
we have, not only our staff in our office of digital learning, but our charter school office is been involved in putting together the RFP, they're familiar with it, and they've got experts who work with charter schools all the time to put these applications together.
Right.
And they're available to be consult with, well.
Well, that would be great, because one of the people making things difficult is me, because I'm insisting to Susan that she also has a tremendous amount of regular public school district work to be done. And
I can imagine.
and there's only so many hours in a day.
Yeah.
So we are gonna wanna follow up with you and see what sort of specific help, and we certainly won't hash that out tonight, Jeff, but we are gonna wanna be in close contact with you, working together a lot.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, well, thank you. That's all I have for the moment.
Jeff, Bill Martin, Mayor of Greenfield.
I may know you.
Hi, Jeff. I just wanted to know, we have a scheduled audit for the school district coming up in May. And
When you say audit, what kind of audit are we talking about?
school review. So,
It's related to the high school's new status on level 3.
Okay.
District review. District review.
district review.
Okay.
So, what I'm proposing, and at the recommendation of the superintendent also, is that this coupled with the 60 or 45 days that we have to perform with the RFP, I'd like to know if we could delay the district review to sometime in late summer. That would give us a little breathing room, as well as some transition time from Mava to the new entity.
I can't even answer that, but what I will do is I will have, Linda Boyd, the commissioner who supervises those, give the superintendent a call and see if there's a way. I don't know whether there's people they need to talk to or see who might not be around in late summer. I hear the question, and we'll follow up on that.
Uh,
Possibly provide relief, we will, but I don't know enough about it. Scheduling those, sometimes, right before school starts, I don't want to work around that.
Right, that's true. So maybe late fall or mid-fall.
Right. Let me get in touch with Susan and we'll resolve that.
Thank you, Jeff, I appreciate that. Just one more question for now. The opportunity to have one of your technical experts working directly with our school, could that also be an appointee on the Board of Trustees for, say, a 1-year period?
No, only because that creates an incredible conflict for us. We're the authorizer of the legal process, and for us to, in effect, be judging what we do ourselves, creates a conflict with that person. But we work unofficially with lots of charter school boards and collaborative boards. So, but the model is there for us to provide you with the assistance without actually having a vote on the board.
Fair enough. One more question. The trustee board itself, it stated it was a state agency, and what type of,
It's a state agency for the purposes of things like conflict of interest law.
so what prohibitions might exist for somebody to hold a seat as a trustee? Could they not be a state worker, would they?
Those types of restrictions would not apply to this thing. You're just scheduled capability, you're not taking a position. So, somebody who's working for a state agency, outside of education, could certainly do that.
Is it a state agency? Jeff, there's
It's a public instrumentality.
public instrumentality, that's what I thought.
It's a government type agency that is established by the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education under authority from the legislature. It's got some aspects that look like a state agency, but it doesn't follow all state agency rules. Some local rules apply as well. It's obligation of new kinds of creature.
A regular public school is a government instrumentality also.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not a state agency, that's just boilerplate language for the ethics law.
It's a state agency for certain limited purposes. In general, what we see right now is a public instrumentality, not a non-profit organization, a governmental body that is doing government work.
Jeff, can I follow up on a question involving conflict of interest?
Yeah.
So, let's assume that there's a board. Let's assume that there
Jeff, this is John Lunt again. Two of the questions that we had that we would like to get some clarification, obviously not now, but if you can, but at some point is, there are students who choiced in to this school.
Okay, I know the question, and I can give you the answer.
Oh, great, okay.
They did not choice in the sense of, when we were choice in, what we're usually meaning is a very specific program called Inter-District School Choice Program.
Right.
That's authorized under Chapter 71, Section 12B of the federal laws. This program, your virtual innovation school was not able to accept students under school choice.
Okay.
It was allowed to accept students from other districts under the innovation school statute and our regulation, virtual innovation schools, which specifically said, because we knew we'd have this problem someday, specifically said a student attending a virtual innovation school cannot attend it under the school choice program.
Okay,
So there are no rights that accrue to anybody from another district by virtue of having been enrolled in a virtual innovation school.
great, thank you. And the second question,
Now, just to extend that one little bit, where
Sure.
Let me stop you, and I would certainly encourage you to put in as part of your proposed enrollment plan for student school, and I think you would want to give preference to those students who are currently enrolled,
yes, we would.
and you need to be explicit about that.
Okay, good, thank you. The second question is just a general, not even concern, just a desire to know how to handle special needs students and the transfer of IEPs from the virtual innovation school to the new Commonwealth of Massachusetts virtual school. And if you think there is anything within that process that we should be paying particular attention to.
Yeah, I know the issue you raised, and I'm not sure what the concern is, and we have students transferring schools all the time, and we have to establish set of protocols of how to deal with the existing IEPs and here where, schools, the government may be changing, but, the same day administrators, I think, will likely be involved, obviously the school continues to have the responsibility as you have had up to now of making appropriate arrangements for the services, but I don't think there's any particular requirement that, I'm sure there's no requirement that all the IEPs of the adult employed. I think the logical thing is the town is going to continue to use the existing IEPs unless you raise some issue that will require us to reconvene the meeting.
Well, and we don't have any intention to. We're just trying to make sure all our i's are dotted and t's are crossed here. No, this is,
There's an issue there that's been raised, that town has been raised that I'm missing. It'd be helpful to find out, because we can certainly consult with our special ed experts on it, but.
I will give you, one of the issues, Jeff, that, this is a hypothetical that I hope does not occur, but suppose the board says, no, we're not accepting your RFP, we're not going to do no school. So,
questions. Schools are allowed to have target groups. Our current school has target groups. Under the new model, under our current model, if we have a student that doesn't fit our target groups, or if we don't think we can serve the child, or we think it's too risky, that the chance that they would have success in this model based on the information, we can not admit. But under the new guideline, it's conflicting. One paragraph says you can't discriminate, and the other paragraph says you can have target groups. Do you have a sense of how?
Right, yeah, and yes, it is a little complicated here. You can certainly identify some target groups, but in doing that, you cannot discriminate against protected classes, and I don't think that's really any different under the law.
Within the,
What is provided to you before, so you cannot say our target group is, students who don't have IEPs, who, score are already scoring proficient on their MCAS. That probably wouldn't pass muster. We obviously know the kind of target groups that you might potentially be interested in. Most of that doesn't cause a problem. Clearly, special education is a protected class, and, if a student, wants to enroll in the school, the fact that they require special services isn't by itself a reason to exclude them. Obviously, you hope in the school process, you can reach a consensus on, does this make sense for the child, or does it not? Potentially a dispute there, as with a brick and mortar school, could go to, have to be resolved by, the Bureau of Special Education Appeals, but, that's sort of, the general rule on, we have to look at each individual case.
following up on that, the way we're working now is we receive $5,000 a child, and the model is that any special ed cost there might be would go back to the district.
That's correct, that's what they thought the school choice tuition model, so we just adapted that. And that's the default model for the new virtual school legislation, although, as you and I discussed, there is an option for you to propose other tuition arrangements.
Are you saying that a student comes into the district and into the new school and has let's just say let's just say N is the tuition rate, and you find out that the child needs N plus $2,000 in special services a year?
Right.
Are we expected to figure out how to do that with N, or are we able to bill N plus 2,000?
Well, if you're using the default tuition rate, which is the 5,000 plus incremental cost of special education services, that would be N plus 2,000. If you, propose, for instance, charter school tuition, charter schools receive a fixed amount for each child and don't receive anything else. It's a much higher number than the 5,000 you're looking at here, but they don't receive anything else, just like you as a district don't receive any, and you got the 70 if you have a high student come in.
So
So that, you can stick with the current model, which frankly, might be the fastest way to get things through here, but if you want to offer up another model, you specify how you want to deal with special education costs.
it only would be possible to use the current model with all the new costs that there will be, but is there in this model any way to go back for extraordinary aid, like a student came along that needed your tuition plus $50,000, or residential placement? How does that?
Well, of course, if it's a residential placement, then there's a presumption that you really can't constrain. You can't enroll in two schools at once, and so that typically would say that goes back to the whole district. But if it's a student who needs special
you're thinking that a child who needs a complete special ed program, anyway, I'm being told, watch the time, I have quite a few questions about how the special ed would work, but I can answer later.
And that's maybe a separate discussion we should have with Mark and our city executive. I think this is an area where you probably know more than we do about how special ed services fit into the virtual environment. So it's one of those areas that we can use some guidance from you in how to craft the regulation to make special ed work in the virtual environment.
Right, and I certainly, Jeff, as you know, charter schools are not responsible for out-of-district placement. You know, one.
They're not responsible, that's right, and that's specifically carved out in our special education regulations, and maybe we need something similar here.
Right, and it's in the statute, and once it's determined that that's on the table, then the charter school calls a meeting with the whole district.
That's correct.
So that, you know, because you're right, I mean, that would really skew the whole financial structure.
We understand that. So we'll need to iron that out as we go forward.
And Jeff, Bill Martin, considering the CBS as a new entity, after the school committee has set up the process for filling the seats of the trustees, is it possible for the new entity to extend and negotiate a contract for 3 to 5 years with K-12, or is there an RFP needed to follow to begin that entire process again?
I think given that this is a transition, we would not have any problem with allowing continuation. I think that's the legislation next year is to allow a transition of the existing schools. So, requiring you to throw out the existing contract and then start over would be consistent with that legislation. And that's probably a question that we might want to just run by the Inspector General as well, because that procurement is their bailiwick and just want to make sure they wouldn't raise any objections. We would not raise any objections.
I'm inclined to agree with you, and checking with the IG is a good idea. Thank you.
Jeff, we have 6:30, do you need to go now?
Well, maybe one or two more.
It's John again, I just wanted to confirm that you were saying that you were thinking this more along the sort of Horace Mann type, obviously it's not a charter school, it's a sort of a charter-like school.
Much of what is borrowed is really borrowed from the Horace Mann model.
Okay, that helps us in our thinking about it, thank you. Other than to say clearly we're gonna have to follow up with you fairly regularly, or I'm sure you'll get sick of us over the next couple months.
Absolutely, we do truly want to make this work. We appreciate the time and effort you put into this, and we know we're really a year away from opening up any other virtual schools elsewhere. So I think if we can make this work, it's the right thing to do.
Okay.
So again, I'll be out there next Thursday for your meeting with the full committee, and if anybody has any first questions that I can answer between now and then, Susan knows how to reach me, and we'll be happy to get the information for you.
Well, thank you very much, we
Thank
appreciate
you very
it.
much, Jeff.
One quick question.
Yeah, sure.
Am I right to assume that the department understands that there needs to be a careful transition period here on behalf of the students and staff?
We certainly understand that it's a complicated transition, that we probably have not as much time as we all wish we have. But of course, we also understand that there are some deadlines that are in the statute that
think the idea we had, Jeff, was to sort of split the idea of governance from the idea of the administrators who've been actually working and running the school. And after July 1, those people could certainly, as part of contracted services, help the new entity in all the ways they're clearly going to need help going forward. So our idea to try to make it work was to address the July 1 piece as a governance issue, so we could be in compliance, like we all have to be. But then with the understanding that the new entity would, in all likelihood, want to contract with Greenfield to provide some expertise and consulting and administrative services, some that would fade as the school developed and some that might go on for some time.
That's absolutely right.
Okay.
Okay, all right, that was my question, much better phrased than I guess.
Okay, great, I'll see you all next week.
Thank you very much,
Thanks, Jeff.
Jeff.
Thanks, bye.
Bye-bye.
Peter, you're still there, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm right here.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah,
Yes,
we're here.
Okay, I just heard Pete. So, yeah, I'm here.
Yes, I think that, excuse me. We already have a public comment.
Sure.
Peter, we're gonna go to public comment. Can you hang on?
I'm right here.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you, darling.
Okay. Would anybody like to comment on what they have heard, or is it
Anybody?
you would like to?
Yes, a friend of mine couldn't be here today, and
Stand up and come closer.
Just say your names.
So he
So that we can hear you.
I'm Seth Cleanella, and I'm an 8th grade student at Mava, and a friend of mine couldn't be here today. She's a student too in 7th grade, and she wanted me to say something for her. I'm a 7th grade student at Mava. As a future leader of this state, my voice needs to be heard. I'm here as an advocate of the gifted and talented students of Mava, and I'd like to speak on their behalf. I don't want Mava to close because it's the only school where I felt I learned things. It challenged me with an effective curriculum that I feel public schools in this area lack. Challenging schoolwork is what we require to be able to learn efficiently, and I found that Mava gave me the chance to rapidly advance at a pace that I felt comfortable with. In public schools, gifted and talented students follow a curriculum that the state deems appropriate for the majority of the student population, but is ill-fitting to the intelligence that this group of students possess. And so, I'd like to point out that it's a waste of time and effort for us to participate in curriculums that are ineffective to us. In my own public school, I used to lay back and get straight A's without putting any effort. As a student, I want to try. I want to work and get smarter and focus on my studies without the distractions and limitations of public schools. So here's my question to you. If Mava closes, where does that leave us? Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question from one of the parents on the Facebook group. She received, I'm sorry, you need my name, Kristen.
Speak up, Kristen.
Okay, there's a question from one of the parents on the Facebook group. They received a response from Senator Rosenberg. Unfortunately, I don't actually know what it must have just been about, what will be happening going forward. So the question was, and I'm not going to read this whole letter, but Senator Rosenberg says that the part that was confusing was that the bill that was passed gives special consideration to Mava, recognizing that it is currently the only operating virtual school in the Commonwealth by allowing it a 3 to 5 year certification separate from the rest of the standards set up in the bill for any new virtual schools. Under the bill, Mava would submit documentation about the school to the Department of Ed and then would be granted certification. But the school could then move closer, the school could then move to close after 1 year, allowing proper time for parents and students to transition to an alternative school. By that time, there would likely be a second virtual school set up and running. The bill gives the Department of Ed time to set up the appropriate regulations, applications, etc. But there will not be a second virtual school ready to open until at least the 2015-2016 school year. So that caused some questions, as you can imagine, because we're all thinking we've, even if this works, that we've really got a single year. So this, as you can imagine, set off a lot of questions on the board. So we just didn't know if you could clarify at all, like if you know do you understand what that is?
I think that my particular feeling is that we should seek a 5-year certification from the state,
Okay,
for the school. And we can always adjust downward from there as events occur. It's up to the entire school committee how that comes about.
okay,
But I see your point, 15, 16?
right, that they won't have another virtual school up until then, yeah, so it just, we don't wanna do this again next year.
I appreciated hearing from Jeff Wilson that he's thinking of this, even though it's not really a charter school, as working along the Horace Mann model,
Yeah,
which is something that's unique to Massachusetts and different, and we had not heard that from them before, and I think that shows that they're understanding the difficulties we're having in trying to be flexible with us.
right,
Because the structure of a Horace Mann school is different than the structure of
other charters, yeah,
the great majority of charter schools, and it does allow for local boards to have some connection, and we'll, as a full school committee, decide what that is.
right,
But the fact that they are publicly and officially saying that, I think, is, to my mind, was telling us that they understood sort of what our predicament was, and they were trying to help us find a way through it. And
Right.
if that is the model that we're going to follow, then I would agree with the mayor. At that point, we should just do it.
right, just do the 5-year.
Could you clarify the difference between Horace Mann and
Or Horace Mann, actually, I'm going to let Susan do that. She can do that better.
Yes, and before I do, I just wanted to respond to the parent with a question and say that the answer Senator Rosenberg gave about there probably not being another school to 15, 16 tells me that people are finally understanding how complicated it is to set up a school. I think people have thought, put the switch on, take the switch off. It took us 2.5 years really to get all the pieces together, so.
It's a lot more than just signing into the website.
It's a lot more than I think people understand.
Sure,
When there was a federal law to have charter schools, it's in the No Child Left Behind Act. The definition is a public school that's independent of a school district. And before the federal law passed, there were a few states that had charter school laws where the district started the charter school and had the key role running it. So in this state, since they already had a charter school law, they figured out how they could keep those schools and keep their law and also comply with the new federal law about distance and separation from the school district. So there's a very interesting advisory on the Department of Education website. I kind of went to figure out what that was, on how school districts can actually have school district charter schools that have nothing to do, that are independent of the school district. And the whole thing is crafted out, how to do it. And if Mr. Wolfson is saying they're considering this sort of, although it's not a charter school, but the uniqueness is somewhat like the Horace Mann Charter School is the charter school law. This virtual school is to the basic school district functioning. And he's clarifying it's not a state agency, it is the same public corporation as any other school system that is giving guidance to how this might be crafted, and that was very clear. So that's what Horace Mann is. It's an early version charter school connected to a school district in a way that is separate from the school district.
And that's quite different from the language that up till now has been the official position of DESE on their website in the law itself. That's, up until now, it had said it would operate autonomously and independently of the district.
so that's good, or probably
Well,
better.
we think so,
Yeah.
because we are really concerned about conflict of interest in working as a local group, and we'll still, I'm sure, have some good But it does mean that when Desi talks like that, it means that they're gonna allow us to be flexible and set things up and transition over. Because the application of the sort of more standard charter school model would have been much harsher in terms of when things were cut off. So that's, I think of that as a significant change.
Anyone else? Oh, Susan, sorry.
I just wanted to say something to Seth. He sort of said his friend's comment and sat down, and I just wanted to say two things. One, on our very own school committee, there have been comments made by members saying they remember in high school where they had to sit and wait to learn something. One of our subgroups is a student who in their own community can't find advanced enough coursework. So that comment has been made before by some members of our school committee. And I wanted to say it's really difficult to speak in public, particularly when you don't know anyone, and I think you did a fantastic job.
Well, thank you.
Just wanted to thank you, congratulate you, it's hard to do. It was a very well-written comment by your friend.
Thank you.
Would you like to stand up so we can hear you?
Oh, sure. Just one question when it regards to regular charter school versus the Horace Mann model that you were just talking about. My understanding is that under a separate charter school, there would be a separate budget and organizational structure. Would that be the same case if there was a Horace Mann charter school, or would it be somehow blended with the regular school budget and not a separate entity?
My understanding, Susan could probably answer more specifically, is the blending is more an issue of governance and local control. There would still be a separate budget set up.
All of their advice on how to do this is on their website, and there is a section on budget. It happens, if I remember clearly, I just read it one night and sent it along for informational purposes. There were some unique arrangements you could make around budget, but I don't think any of that's known for this particular type of school. I think you could contract with the district to manage your funds. You know, any public school needs a treasurer. There was some ability you could contract for those services. Believe.
I would say that it does allow for all that. Just my own personal opinion, nothing more than that, is I would like to see a budget for a school like this be a separate thing. And that the issues of services provided by the Greenfield School District be handled through memorandums of understanding or basic subcontracting.
I want to make a comment on Seth, on his letter too. When we first started talking about putting together the virtual school, I was thinking about children who are in accidents, or young mothers, or kids that are really bullied and just can't face school. It never occurred to me that the kids, and many of them have written, their parents have written to us, that they just weren't getting enough education. They weren't getting filled with information. And they're the ones that, so many of them have gotten in touch with us to let us know how they can take what they learn and just take it out. And one, somebody stood up the other night and said, you may be shutting off a future president of the United States. And, you know, of course, that's how we get presidents. They think outside of the box. And that getting information from the parents and the kids about what Mava means to them has just been very exciting and very impressive to me.
Thank you.
Her vocabulary was incredible. I assume all her words were spelled correctly. I was just so impressed with.
That's my daughter, and she's a published author.
Oh, is she really?
Seventh grade.
What grade?
7.
7? And who is she? He didn't give us her name, I don't believe.
Oh, Lynette.
Lynette.
I'm sorry.
Levine.
Lynette Levine.
You have,
Was very.
yeah, you have two.
One is with me down where I live.
One of those is actually very Lots to be proud of
Oh, I think you should
in
be,
Mava. No, I mean Mava, and I think Mava is, it's incredible.
and I've learned that it is.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Yes, did you want to say something?
Can I say something? I'm Wade Levine, and I teach in Mava as well, and I teach the 7th and 8th grade math, and I interviewed a student a week or two ago from the 5th grade, and I interviewed him to enter my algebra class, which is my 8th grade class, and he proved beyond a reasonable doubt that he knew more than most students that needed, and he's a 5th grade elementary school student, who, in no other model that I know of, would be accepted in an 8th grade classroom with open arms in the middle of the year. And we took him in, and he's in my algebra class right now. So under no other model that I know of would that happen, and it's really awesome.
Actually, we do that here in our classrooms too. My sons are, they have a mixed program where, and they actually were working with the same Mava curriculum for a while, but they are really working at a much higher level in science and English than is normal, and we try to do that here. It is harder in a brick and mortar setting, but one of the things the school committee adopted was the principle of acceleration, and that students not be held back. And if a 6th grade student needed to be in an 8th grade English class, that's where they needed to be, and that's how we at least try to approach this here.
That's incredible. And it's just a success for all of the educational models that we all work to include. And to know that that's possible today is incredible.
It's not easy, and I'm sure we do it better in some cases than others, but it is something that Susan really brought it to the district, but it's something we've been working on for a few years now.
Right.
Believe it or not, I'm talked out. I'm just thinking of the work and the timeline, and I have a lot of questions that are probably better shared with our attorney and the Department of Ed about the financing and special ed and compliance and legal details, just a lot of things in my mind, but
I think we should determine what recommendation the subcommittee is going to make to the full committee next week. I don't know if you want to ask people to speak to that.
Yes, right.
I just wanted to remind you what the last vote was, which was to direct me not to submit an RFP by March 25th. To not direct me to submit an RFP by March 25th. That was the last vote. That's helpful.
Okay. So, are we going to approach the whole school committee with a motion for reconsideration of that motion? How do you want to go about it?
Well, I wanted to ask Peter. Peter, I know you're aware that you can only move to reconsider for 24 hours after the initial vote, and it has to be someone from the prevailing side who makes that motion. So it would seem to me the two choices we have are either a motion to rescind, which we could do without warning with either 2/3 of the school committee or a majority of the entire committee. 2/3 would be 5, the majority of the entire committee would be 4 votes, which for us is the same as a simple majority. Or we would have to determine that the wording of the motion that was made at the previous meeting would no longer apply because of the new timeline that.
I believe that would be proper, yes.
But do we have to? I worry very much about that. If it fails, I don't know, we're back where we started from.
Can I answer that, Peter?
Yes.
For good or ill, the only body that has any authority here is the school committee. And individual school committee members don't have any authority in as much as they are, except as they're part of the committee. The will of the majority of the school committee is the only determining factor, and at some point, the will of the committee has to get expressed. And I understand what you're saying, but there's no way around it, and we shouldn't even try.
We shouldn't even try what, that's,
We shouldn't try to get around the fact that we have to get a majority of the entire committee, or a 2/3 majority, in which case, a majority of the entire committee, which is 4 votes, and if you don't get that, then the school committee doesn't support it, and we shouldn't move forward, because that's we were elected to follow the charter and Robert's rules that we've adopted, and that's the rules we have as a group. We have to do that. We have to let the will of the school committee be the final determinant.
okay.
Do you, if I'm wrong, please tell me, Peter, but I don't think I am.
I have no reason to believe that the vote we took several weeks ago when, the vote to direct that the superintendent not submit an RFP is not still valid.
Right.
Because, again, John, we have nothing which says in writing that the date of March 25th, whatever the date was, has been changed.
Should we be demanding that happen in writing before the meeting, Peter?
I don't think you have to. I think that, you can always, as we've seen in many previous meetings, the motion can have a contingency. Contingent upon granting an extension to, I believe Jeff said, April 22nd or 24th, I believe that was the date. And, so I would certainly think that that's critical in order to submit a quality RFP, but I don't see that as a problem.
Okay.
Once you've rescinded the prior vote.
Okay, so the subcommittee here, what do you want to do as you're the chairman of the school committee? What do you want us to do? How are we gonna vote this out of this subcommittee?
So I would move that this committee,
Subcommittee.
this subcommittee, make a positive recommendation to the full school committee to present and direct the superintendent to prepare an RFP for an extended date, contingent upon an extension of the deadline.
Would you accept a friendly amendment stating that the reason we're doing this is because of the changes in position from DESI and legislators that have changed the situation since we last spoke?
Due to the change in, regulatory outlines and waivers available to Greenfield, Mava.
Second.
Somebody's gonna want to use
Now-
that motion.
Before we, as part of the discussion, this would come after the motion to rescind.
I'm still not certain on that, Peter. I would like to check with other people, or have you check with the fine print on the Robert's rules,
That would be fine.
Sure.
just to verify the reconsideration and the 2/3 vote. And I think a new motion is a completely separate and has no bearing on the fact that we can't resurrect the old one.
Well, I certainly welcome that. I would make a friendly suggestion, Your Honor. I would state, I don't think what happened is that you've gotten new regulations. I think that what's happened is you've got really some very critical clarification from the DESE in regards to
So we could change out, except that change of phrase, the second one, that it would be the critical clarifications received from Bessie involving the
Peter, I would also support what the mayor said about you having, taking a look at Robert's rules. And if you come back and advise us that we don't need a motion to rescind, I would happily accept that.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that.
Okay.
Can you hear the motion I've written down?
Yes.
Page and a half of notes, and this is what I have.
We're gonna take a vote on it.
I want to make sure what comes out is the same. I have moved this subcommittee make a positive recommendation to the full school committee to present and to direct the superintendent to prepare an RFP for submission at a later date, contingent upon an extension of an RFP submission deadline due to important clarifications and critical new information received since the February 28th vote.
It's a bit of a run-on sentence,
It
but,
is certainly that.
right, Seth?
Okay, those in favor,
Aye.
those opposed, it passed here unanimously.
Peter, can I ask a favor?
Yeah,
If it is determined that we do need a vote to rescind, I need your help in making sure that we order things properly then.
all right,
Does the recommendation to the full committee come before a vote to rescind, after? If you could advise me on how to do that, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm happy to further look into that, John. As you know, I have some, we've already scheduled a full day in Greenfield on Tuesday,
Mm-hmm.
so that, and that's after a lot of work, has already been done. So that part of it will be to look at just the procedures of how to do this.
Okay, great, thank you.
Did you say Tuesday, not Thursday?
Well, Thursday is the committee meeting.
Right, but you're gonna be here all day Tuesday?
All day.
For a number of issues.
For a number of reasons.
Okay, I don't mean to throw a monkey wrench into this topic, but I will have to, because after the, motion failed, a second motion was made, and it was in relation to the first one, and I don't have the minutes here, so I don't remember what it was, but the mayor made a motion.
And it was for me to notify the Department of Education that the school committee would not be submitting an RFP. It was a notice to the state of the committee's vote, as a professional courtesy.
Okay, so at this point, that doesn't have any effect on,
Oh, we already did?
we already did it.
Yeah, on
So they-
Friday, Susan sent an email,
Okay, so
last.
do we need to do anything with that? Do we need to rescind that motion? Or how are we gonna deal with that motion?
It was just a notice, wasn't it?
It was just a notice?
And besides, before I turned on my computer, they already had read the news and read the vote.
Okay.
But I didn't understand that to be a new and different idea.
Okay,
Well, Peter, maybe you could look at the minutes and help us make a determination on that too.
Right, but I mean, obviously, as we know tonight, the department is very aware that, the committee may be moving in a different direction.
okay. Okay. Anything else? Anything else, Susan?
What about the Wednesday Denny's meeting where everybody gets together and say, this is what's going on?
Well, that's a general Greenfield Public School meeting, you're still welcome to come, it's 8:30.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
8:30,
I'll
we
be
don't
there.
do it every Wednesday,
Yeah.
but,
Oh, there you go. Yep.
give us your email and we'll let you know when we're doing it next.
Okay, anything else? Do we have a-
Not for me. I move we adjourn.
Yeah, and a second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Peter.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you,
Peter.
nice job.
Okay, speak to,